If I can stop you, John, do you think the reason you were let go is because of the Lazar name?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And they didn't want any more publicity. So the next morning, Bob gets a call from his boss and says, Bob, don't go to work. I'm going to pick you up. And he picked him up, drove him up to Indian Springs, which is the center for all security for the test site. And they pulled him out of a car with a gun in his ear, and they said, Bob, when we gave you this security clearance, it didn't mean you were supposed to tell all your friends about the flying saucers. Do you want to work here or not? And he was non-committal. He came home and, told us about, what happened. And I said, he going back to work? And he said, probably not. And I said, why? He said, the main reason is because the last time I went up, he said, when I got on that, the only thing I remember is getting on the 737 and getting off. I don't remember what I did up there. And he said, I couldn't work under conditions like that.
All right. Hold it right there, John. Good evening, everybody. You're listening to a very rare interview indeed. My guest is John Lear, the son of Bill Lear, inventor of the Lear jet, and a man who knows an awful lot about what's going on inside. Actually, so much inside information that I doubt we'll hear it all tonight, but we'll see how much we can get to from the high desert. This is Coast to Coast AM. Okay, John, we kind of left off where Bob essentially said, nah, he didn't think he'd go back to work there.
Yeah, and his reason was because the last time he went, he could remember getting on the 737 and getting off, but he couldn't remember what he did there. So the I think it was the next day or so, like the Saturday, I had done, or it was Sunday morning, I had done some interviews with George Knapp, and it was, I forget what the program was called, but we discussed UFOs and everything, and that night he called me. He said, John, you can't believe it. The phones are ringing off the hook here. People want more. What can I do for an encore? And I said, well, maybe I can get Bob to come on. And so I talked with Bob, and that was the Monday night that he did the news show where they showed him in shadow, telling that he worked up there and that he worked on extraterrestrial craft.
Oh, that was a big broadcast.
And then a few days later, George Knapp and Bob Stoldow, who headed up Channel 8, came up, and George said, I have Bob here. We want to talk to... I have Bob Stoldow here. We want to talk to Lazar, and we want to see if he's telling the truth, and I want to go ahead with a special. He said, I need to get Bob Stoldow's permission. So we sat here for an hour or two, and they grilled Bob this way and that, and finally said, Bob Stoldow said, go ahead, do it. And that's when George went with the six-part documentary on Lazar.
Yeah, very famous documentary. Channel 8 really stayed heavily on that. And anyway, so that was it for you and Bob?
That was pretty much it. Bob made the Lazar tape, which documented what he learned up there. And we stayed in touch for many years. He ran Desert Blast every year up until Desert Blast 13 was the last one that we ran. It was the largest outlaw fireworks show west of the Mississippi, and we didn't do it again for several reasons. One was because we had 13 shows with just tremendously high explosive displays, and there wasn't one single injury. And Bob said, "Look, we've gotten away with this long enough. Let's bring this to a close." So,
okay, I've got a computer here, and people can send me questions kind of as we go along. And somebody was asking, that proves that Lazar knew the schedule roughly of what was happening up there. It doesn't necessarily prove the rest of his story. How confident are you that everything and you were told by Lazar was right on the money?
I'm confident that everything he told me was true, and I've heard that argument several times that he may have known the schedule, and then they also say he may have been a cook up there. So, but if he was a cook, then that means that they told the cooks when they were going to fly the flying saucers.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. But in general,
there's no way I can prove, all that happened. I can just say I believe it.
And of course, you can believe what you saw with your own eyes.
Yeah.
Do you have how much of an idea do you have with regard to the capability of the craft that you saw fly? Fly is the wrong word, I guess.
Well, Bob said it, had tremendous capabilities. It could certainly travel outside, this solar system and go to other solar systems. The fuel that, he worked on the propulsion system. When you go to work there, everything is so compartmentalized, other than the initial briefing that he got where he learned a little about, everything that was going on. They don't allow him to work on all aspects of it. He had to pick one field, and his field that he picked on was try to duplicate the propulsion with present-day technology. And, of course, it's impossible. They're hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us, although we can understand how it works. There's no way we can contain an antimatter reactor.
John, Bob got his hands on element 116, crucial to the operation, I guess, of these craft, this element 116.
That's the fuel.
Yeah, the fuel. And did he, you remember, you don't have to answer these things if you don't want to, but did he bring that to your home?
No, it was at his house.
It was at his house. You saw it yourself?
Yes.
Huh. What became of the element 116 that he possessed?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Let me ask you something easy, or maybe it's not easy. You're a pilot. You've been a pilot all your adult life, I guess, correct?
Yeah.
Something a lot of us wonder is how many pilots see these craft. A lot of people, I've noticed something, John. You get a lot more UFO sightings when, Mars is coming close and people are paying attention to the sky. Most people go around looking at what's in front of them or the road or whatever, and they have to. They don't spend a lot of time looking at the sky. But pilots do. They spend a lot of time looking at the sky, and many of us wonder how many pilots actually see these things.
That's really a misconception, because when you're flying an airplane, particularly in this day and age, you're concentrating on what's going on inside the cockpit. During the nighttime, even if the lights are turned down, there's no way you can see out the windows. I mean, you can press your eyeball against the window and see stars, but it's not like you're sitting there in your normal piloting position and you can see outside. You can't. And then during the daytime, your attention isn't outside. I mean, you can look out occasionally from time to time, but most of your concentration is inside. You're talking with air traffic control. You're monitoring, the instruments and paying attention to flying. You don't
so
have time. But in answer to your questions, how many people see? Not many. I've heard some stories of guys see stuff outside, and of course, I may have been a little different. I spent a lot more time looking outside. I remember one of the last flights I made with one of the cargo airlines. We're very late at night, and I'm looking out, and I see this thing come streaking across the sky and then go straight up. And I thought, no, gosh, I wish the crew had seen that. And so then I didn't say anything, and then it happened again. And I thought, well, maybe it'll happen again. So I said, hey, you guys, look at this. And it happened 3 more times. And it was, I don't know what it was, but it came streaking about halfway across the horizon directly over the airplane and then shot straight up.
Huh. Okay. It's a million things I want to ask you about. For example, Richard C. Hoagland, early in the early years, had some shocking stuff he said about things that are on our moon. just incredible things, tall spires and structures and buildings and things, and just incredible stuff. And people laugh. They ought not be laughing at that, huh?
No, Richard C. Hoagland inspired me to look